con Iratia Guirrazcónaga, que será la que va a presentar a la siguiente de nuestras ponentes. Comentar, bueno, que a partir de ahora de ahí lo del tema de la traducción simultánea, los tres siguientes ponentes hablarán en inglés, que junto con el portugués y el castellano y en parte también el euskera, para aquello que quiera, son lenguas oficiales de, digámosla, de este congreso. Lo que no sé es cuál es el canal. Eso es como en todo, hay que jugar trastear con el aparatito y buscar el canal. No creo que sea muy complicado porque tampoco es que tengáis que hacer mucho zapping. Y por otro, simplemente comentar que lo que es el congreso se está emitiendo vía streaming también a través de EHUTV en el canal 1, para aquellos que queráis seguirlo vía televisión en lugar de vía directo. Agradecer también a los técnicos de la universidad, que son los que verdaderamente están haciendo posible la emisión vía streaming y la grabación de este congreso. Eskerrik asko.
Bueno, gaurko gure bigarren hizlaria Nicoletta Vittadini dugu, Milaneko unibertsitatetik dator, bertan da irakasle, kultura eta komunikazioaren soziologia irakasten du, eta kastaritza ikasketak burutu zituen Milanen. La doctora Vittadini es especialista en Sociología de la Comunicación y las redes sociales y actualmente dirige un máster llamado Especialista en Comunicación Digital. También es investigadora en el Departamento de Comunicación y Artes Escénicas de la Universidad de Milán y hoy nos hablará sobre la veracidad de las noticias en el denominado periodismo social. So, well, thank you very much for being here today and sharing your knowledge and experience. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much for your invitation. I apologize, but I can't speak Spanish, and so I will present my presentation in English with this quite ambitious title, Sharing the News, Social Journalism and the Question of Trustworthiness. And I'm very happy to say that different topics that have been presented in the presentation before mine can build some bridges between the experience of the Huffington Post that has been presented and some topics I will present in my work. For example, and first of all, that the moment of the publication of an article online, it isn't the final moment of his life. And the activity of sharing the news obviously is one of the activities that amplify the life and the diffusion and distribution of an article. So I would like to begin my presentation from some starting points, probably already known, but that help us to share some ideas. The first starting point is that, as had been said, the social networks are one of the places where people encounter the news for the first time and where people get the news. These are the results of a research of the well-known Pew Research Center, and this research has been based on Facebook News. And the survey shows that the 30% of the 64% of internet users who use Facebook get news from the site. And Facebook isn't always, obviously, the only social network where people get news. We have also YouTube, Twitter, Google+, and all the other social. But obviously, it is the mainstream social network. The second starting point is that we are discussing during all this conference, I think, around the topic of social journalism. And that social journalism has two phases, probably three. The first one is that is obviously a media model consisting in the hybrid of professional journalism and reader content. And different newspapers and websites are trying to produce a convergence between professional journalism and content coming from readers. But the second phase of social journalism is that is part of social journalism, also the use of social media tools to spread the information and news. And this isn't only an activity made by journalists. The spreading of the news around social network, as it has been said in the first presentation, is a convergent activity where professionals and not professionals collaborate and to which they both contribute. The third starting point is that we can define the social media, all this world of social media, as any online technology or practice that lets us share content, opinions, insights, experiences, media, and have conversations about the ideas we care about. This isn't obviously the only definition that we can produce and present related to social media. But it is interesting for us because it has two words very important. Social media are a technology to share. Not only to produce content, not only to become a producer, a journalist, not only a space for citizen journalism, but a space where we share contents and everything else, and that we discuss about topics we care about. So, starting from these three starting points, we can find 4 keywords that we can use for the following part of the presentation. Online media are source. People, the news and the articles spread around the web. People share contents and share what they care. You know that the last book of Henry Jenkins, well-known writer about convergence and the digital technologies, is called spreadable media. And he used this word exactly to explain how important is the spreading of the news and of the contents around the web. These 4 keywords arise 2 questions I'm interested in this discussion. Which is the role of citizens in the sharing and spreading of news on social networks? And the second one is, how does it question the issue of trust in news media system and in news stories? And I'll try to discuss with you and to present you some reasoning about these 2 questions and tentative answers. We have to start thinking about some technological innovations. During the first presentation, it has been said that people access news through social network, and so they don't access the homepage of newspapers or websites, and they access directly to one article. This began in the Web 1.0, when the search and Google and other software for the search introduced the opportunity to look for a topic, for example, the G20. That's a very relevant topic in these days. And as you can see, we have articles. And so we can say that starting for the birth of the search, we had new gatekeeping processes. For example, consenting to an article to be the first one to be visualized in the research results. And as we know, it is a question of SEO, a question of how it is written, which kind of keywords it has, and it's a question of SEM, how are managed the keywords and the search engine management, how are managed the search engine by the, not directly the journalist, but the newsroom and the news media system. And then, obviously, it introduced a question of personalization, because obviously the search is based on individual or collective interests. And third, they introduced for the first time the content fragmentation. We can say the article travel alone along inside the internet and the networks. And so articles travel alone, and they are visible, related to the relevance of the content, but also based on technical capabilities and technical features of the article. So this dynamic poses a question. It is the question of visibility of the media system and of the journalist in which people should trust. When I search inside Google or another search engine, I'm not directly connected to a newspaper as part of the media system which works based on some specific rules and in which I could trust. Neither I'm directly in contact with a relevant journalist, an important journalist, in which I can trust, as it is well known and as I can have some information about the quality of his work. And so the trust in the news has to take in account different elements. Not directly the media system, neither directly the personalization of the journalist. The trust is built, for example, in these technical features. I trust more the first article I find inside the search engine. If I'm not very competent, if I'm not very interested in a specific topic, I read the first news that I find in the search engine. Then another question we have to take into account is the position of the reader inside this digital system. Readers, and this is a question of Web 2.0, readers obviously acquire information from different sources, Facebook, blogs, the Web 1.0, so the websites, Twitter, YouTube, and so on. They can share news and comments towards blogs, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. But they mainly share the informations. You see the yellow arrow, they are there to say that one of the most important activities of users is distribution. You know that there is a proportion that's called 1-9-90. It says 1% of users produce, 9% of users comments, 90% of users read and share. And so we have to take into account that the real and basic participation is based on this 1%. The 9% is commenting and not producing directly contents, but 90% can share. And so they are mainly big question of redistribution of news. And so we have to question why and how they do this. So the question of share. We have to take into account this topic. And if we look at another research of the Pew Research Center, we always have to take into account that these researches are done in the USA, and so we have then balanced the differences between USA and Europe. But we can use these results as an indicator of some phenomena. The 50% of social networking site users have shared or reposted news stories, images or videos. 46% discussed a news issue or event, and 40% and 12% posted photos or videos. So this sharing effect, this activity of sharing that users of the social network do, produce some effects. Some effects in the life of the news, life of the news stories. And three relevant effects are the time shift, the content shift, and the reframing. I mean that the activities of sharing produce a typology of circulation of news stories around the social network, which isn't the same that one produced by publishing a newspaper. Let's see some examples that can help us in comprehending these three words that I put in this slide. The time shift we can call the meme effect. I mean, it is mainly an effect of extension of the life cycle of news. The life cycle of news extends in an unpredictable way, spreading all around the network and all around the social networks. But it happens in this time shift, that means extending the life cycle of the news, that some images or some news become the representation of an argument, a representation of a topic, also when they aren't anymore news. And this is the meme effect. You know, memes are these images and often commented with words which are distributed and shared in social networks. This is an image of, you know that in different countries, and especially in Italy at present, we have a problem with rivers and water, and we have different cities in difficulties. And this is an image of an event happened in Milan some days ago, and it is becoming the representation of this topic. Second is the recontextualization. You know, I think this lady. He is a famous astrophysic, Margherita Hack, who died a few weeks ago. And in the social network, this news, it was an international, well-known astrophysic, has been spreaded. But what happened? That people who would like to spread this news inside the social network sometimes used old articles related to this lady. Not exactly always the articles related to her death. And for example, this is an article of last year, 2013, where she explained why she became vegetarian and her ethic reasons to be vegetarian. Nothing at all related to the last month of her life or her death. And this has been the article which has sustained the diffusion of the news of her death in social networks. Why? Because probably the first one who shared this, the first person who shared this, found this article related in some way to this lady, and to be the first one to share the news, use this article to support the information. And then all the other shared the Facebook post of this man, and this effect of recontextualization of an article related to vegetarianism inside the diffusion of the news related to the death of a famous person happens often in social network. The third effect is the reframing. Now I'm not speaking about Facebook, but about Twitter. And probably you have seen this map. And this phenomenon has been based on the initiative of a researcher who posted this map on Twitter with the precise intention to say, okay, we are always creating an alarm. We are always speaking about Africa as the continent of Ebola, and we are describing this phenomenon as pervasive, global, dangerous, and alarmistic, in an alarmistic way. And so he posted on Twitter, especially to say, let's have a look at the map of Africa, and let's say that only these 3 countries are in danger for Ebola. And there's all the other part of the continent which isn't touched by this illness. This tweet had more than 1,000 retweets. And what happens that in a couple of days, international and national newspaper use this map and this tweet to reframe their coverage of the Ebola news. And they use this map to change the way they were presenting this emergency. Obviously because it was generating some economic damages to other African countries where nobody would like to go for holidays or for economic reasons. Or obviously there was a reason to reframe this news. But this reframing activity started not from the single tweet, but from the sharing of the tweet, because if this tweet remained a single tweet, probably it couldn't have the effect of reframing. So it is relevant to understand which are the reasons of sharing. We have seen some effects of sharing, but these effects are related to the reason why people share. And so I change a bit this sentence because it seems to be very interesting, also if it is related to brands, but it fits to news. So a question to take into account is this: if I tell my Facebook friends about your news, it's not because I like your news, or not only because I like your news, but rather because I like my friends. So the reasons for sharing aren't related only to the quality of the content, to the relevance of the topic, but are related in social network to the social relations that this these digital platforms sustain. And so I would like to discuss with you, or to present you, the results of another research that has been done last year, and that was based on the question: why do you share contents on social networks? And among these contents, obviously, news are present. And so the 5 answers that emerged from this research were: to bring valuable and entertaining content to others. So, as a gift to my friends, because the content is entertainment, but also because it is valuable. The second one is to define ourselves to others. And so, I share a content if it can represent part of my lifestyle, commitments, interests. The third one that's very similar to the first is to grow and nourish our relationships. I share content if this can, how can I say, confirm, for example, that we have common interests. The fourth one is self-fulfillment. I share contents to build my reputation online. And so, if you remember the example of the astrophysics and the vegetarianism, this the first person who shared this news would like to build his reputation as a very informed person and the first one who shared on social network news. And the fifth one is to get the word out about causes or brands. So to express the commitment towards social causes, international causes, and so on. In my opinion, these results can be very interesting because news can be present in all these 5 typologies of sharing motivation, and not only the gossip news. Because they can be a valuable content, they can define people, for example, expressing a particular interest in a topic, they can express a collective interest on a topic, they can be used for build a reputation, and then they can be used to express the adhesion to causes, the commitment to causes. Basically, the activity of sharing is an activity of caring, because all these 5 motivations are linked to the idea to take care of. Take care of oneself, take care of the others, take care of the world, through causes, for example. And then it is relevant, as I said before, that become the local expert of the group, the person who has more news, more information, who is the first to share them, and it means often become a group leader. Generate his likes and sharing activities of one's posts and generate his followers on Twitter. And this has been demonstrated that who share news become often the center of the network in Twitter, but also in Facebook. So another sharing effect that we have is the social network introduce a kind of social-driven gatekeeping, because people choose their news which will be shared on the base of interests, caring, and self-fulfillment activities related to the group in which they are included. And so we have the publishing of the news, we have the technological gatekeeping of the search engine, but we have then this social-driven gatekeeping to the spread of the news, obviously not to the first publishing. We have this social-driven gatekeeping which filters the news that spread in the social networks. And the composition of the group is crucial because it defines interests, topics, the relevance of the news for different groups. And so in Facebook, the news don't spread always in the same way. It depends also for the composition of the social groups and networks. And then we described a bit which is the role of citizens in the sharing and spreading of news on social network. But what about how does it question the issue of trust in news media system and news stories? The situation is quite similar to a famous theory that I think everybody knows, that is the two-step flow of communication. But we have the newsroom, we have the local experts, people who share, and we have the groups. And so, partially, the trust is focused, the question of trust focuses on these local experts, people who share the news. So, relating to the question of trust, the sharing effect means that we are moving, or we already moved, from a systemic trust, from the confidence that the social system, in particular in this case the information system, act following routines and trustworthy automatic mechanisms. I mean, the basic idea of the trust in the news media system. I trust in the news because I know that there's a newsroom. This newsroom has some rules, verify news, control everything, and publish only the verified news. This is the model of the systemic trust, and was the basic trust system in the information. We already moved to normative personal credibility when single journalists become more and more important. These two levels of trust mixed, and the normative personal credibility means the credibility of the source intended as the journalist as expert in gathering, selecting, and newsmaking. Basically, we live in a society where these two levels of trust interact when we relate to news. We use partially a systemic trust, and we use partially a normative personal credibility, the trust in an expert in his work. Sometimes we trust in journalists, famous journalists. Sometimes we trust in the specific newsroom and not at the same time in all the media system. Okay, but we are passing at present to a third level of trustworthiness, which is adding and in some part substituting the first two ones. That's the emotional personal credibility. It's the credibility of the mediator who shares, because we have with him an emotional relationship. It is a friend. Or it is a person that I know directly, or he is a friend of a friend. And so this credibility is based on familiarity and on homology. On familiarity because it is a credibility based on direct relationship, and on homology because I trust more people who share my interests, my same topic. And the interesting thing is that this emotional personal credibility can be handed over to others. I mentioned before the case of a friend of a friend. And it generates a progression of transferred credibility where the original source becomes less and less crucial. So I share something because a friend of mine have already shared it, and I trust in this friend because we have common interests, because I know him, because I trust that he's a serious person. Probably he shared the news shared by another friend in which he trusts. And so we are more and more losing the relationship with the source of the news. And we use this transfer credibility. And that's the reason because sometimes we share news without reading the article it is based on. And especially it is crucial, the question that we are losing the direct relationship with the source. That's the reason because false news have such kind of success in social network. So the newsroom is fading. Not for it's fading in this mechanism of credibility. And this is a crucial question because the newsroom shouldn't fade. And everything is based on this central subject. That's local expert. And then what's happening? And I'm going to conclude. And then what's happening? That this trust in social media is more and more relevant in countries, situations, historical contingencies, where trust in news media is lower. The lower is the trust in the media system, the higher is the trust in news in social media. Different comparative cross-country analysis showed that countries where the trust in news media is lower have a higher trust in social media. But this is partially evident. The less I trust in the system, the more I trust in the personal relationships. But we have to take into account the mechanism of the trust in social media. So I trust in personal relationships that are more and more far from the original source. And so the risk is the generation of trust instability. Okay. So this is the last issue. It's a meme that I found. Obviously, it isn't an original quotation. It's a meme that I found on the web that says, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it." But the question is, I think, why do you believe everything you find on social network only because a friend guarantees for it, and this friend really is guaranteeing for the content? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Orain galderentzako tartea. Tenéis ahora tiempo, oportunidad para preguntarle lo que queráis a la ponente. Bai, Mikroak? Habéis levantado la mano por ahí, ¿no? Ah. Orain, hurrengoa.
One, two, three. First, thank you, Nicoletta, for a wonderful presentation. I come from University of Porto, and I'm really interested in the topics you just mentioned. And two questions came to mind immediately, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it. First one is, studies recently show that young people don't go on social media in search of news, and that's a big shift. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and the implications of that. And the second one, about social gatekeeping. And I tend to think on what's behind the screen. That's how I work. And those robots that decide what we see in the order of the content that we see. And they're increasingly deciding at a personal level. So I was wondering if you have any thoughts about algorithmic gatekeeping.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. The first one I was prepared to because I've seen these researches. And yes, probably the young people don't use social network to gather news. But two questions we have to take into account, in my opinion. The first one is that in a lot of European countries, the main part of social network users are young adults and adults. There are young people, but the big part also because these two age cohorts are big part of the population in different European countries, as they are the baby boomers, so they are a lot. And they represent a significant part of the Facebook users. So, and these users use social network not to gather news, but it is a kind of agenda. It's a kind of agenda where they catch up the news that seems relevant during the day, and then probably they use different instruments to inform themselves. But it is an agenda effect. And this agenda effect, I think, is relevant also for the young people that say, I don't go on Facebook to see what's happening. Okay, but what I see on Facebook as a news influences for my future researches. So it isn't an intentional source, but it is a place where they meet news. Related, and also the second question is very interesting because these different levels are working all together. There is related to the activity of sharing, as it is intentional, the social networks I'm included in and the interest and the topics I think are relevant for my network is a kind of social-driven gatekeeping. But what I can find on Facebook is based on the algorithm. And so the two mechanisms are working together. I can choose between a set of topics that an algorithm has decided for me, but when I intentionally share them, I apply this social-driven gatekeeping. But that's a very crucial topic.
Hi, thank you very much, Nicoletta. Really interesting presentation. I want to ask you about the sharing effect. You have explained that about the importance of the local experts. I want to ask you about, do you think that local media can be at the same time media and a local expert? I mean, the importance of a brand like a local expert or something that can be interesting to read and to speak about the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sure. In my presentation, I focused especially on citizen or people being on the social networks because they are mainly responsible of this activity of sharing. New media push the news on the social networks, and then are people who share them. But obviously, the role of the media in social network is relevant and crucial, and also of local media as local experts. It's the other side of the of what happens on the social network, and they are always obviously relevant also to influence the reasons because people share news. The more, how can I say, the more local is the news, the more it is shared, sure, because it is useful to others.
Thank you very much. I was following your work from the times in which you studied hypertext. I hope you haven't abandoned that line as well. But coming to the research done on the audiences, my question is whether have you done any question in newsrooms with journalists about which is their perception of the audience's role and their importance? Do they, for example, read the comments sent by the audience or not? I mean, the traditional newsrooms, those journalists that had contract before the World Wide Web was invented or implemented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, first of all, for such loyalty. I don't think it is so important, my work. No, the answer is I'm focusing mainly, oops, that was the timer. I focused mainly on the users' activities. I can guess that all these processes should be shared and discussed with journalists, because at present my impression is that the main analysis of what people do on social network is based on how many people view my article, how many people share my article on social network. So I push an article on the social media, how many times it is viewed, how many times it is shared. And that's obviously a relevant indicator. But there are things that happens after. And there are reasons because the articles are shared that can be very useful for journalists. For example, to move a little bit forward of what I see that happens in Italian newspaper and related to the presence on social network. They put on social network mainly local news, as we were saying, and the news that has the most visits on the website. And so the gossip news, and so the really soft news, because, but it is important to understand and to share these results with people who has to manage the information at the first level, that it is different how many times a news is clicked and viewed on the website, how many times news is clicked and viewed on the social network, and the relevance that the news has in the social life of social networks. Are two different things, and obviously the photos of a beautiful girl clicked, or the photos of a beautiful man are clicked on the website, and obviously they are clicked also on the social network, but we have to reach, journalists have to reach a high number of clicks because this gives relevance to their work and for economic reasons. But it is important, I think, for them also to reach a relevance in these conversations that live in social network and become a part of the conversations of the social network, and so to be shared and commented. And it is difficult to track this. It isn't automatically easily tracked, but it is very important.
Thank you. One more question, if I may. Do the members of the audience you have research on consider themselves to some extent authors as well, with authors' rights and
yes,
property rights?
only a little part. Only a little part of them act and consider themselves as authors. Only a very small portion. Except when this typical events of citizen journalism or the reporting from people, from citizens happens. For example, a sudden event, natural event, that in these cases, yes, in these cases, a wider part of the social network users contribute as authors, documenting and sharing photos, images, and tales. But it is the earthquake, the river that invades a city, and this kind of events, sudden events, natural, not natural. But these are exceptions. During normal life, they don't consider themselves as authors. They consider themselves as active readers. That's a little bit different.
Because they are not creating original material.
Yes, they read and act and share and comment and share commenting. Not always they comment behind the article. Their comment is the post they add to the sharing of the news. And in this sense, they are active readers. But they, as you said, they tend not to produce original material except when something happens.
Thank you very much. Mi esker, hemen bukatuko dugu saioa, urrengo islarekin jarraitzeko. Vale.